Okay, welcome everybody. How y'all doing today? Okay, of course it's not. I'm back again, but Tars Downey, go hard, go home. If you watch the intro, you already know about my first book, Why We Are Divided. Okay, so what we're getting into today is I'm dropping the second story that's the second part of this, and I decided to drop that here on the YouTube channel and see how that works out. This is the first chapter of that book. I'm explaining the first chapter of storytelling. Really, pretty much is like that. That's how this is going to work. Okay. Okay. This is the two divided. Okay. It's the second part of Why We Are Divided. This book is available on Amazon.com. But with two divided, you'll be able to see all of that here. So all you have to do is just keep watching the videos, and you can keep up with the story. Okay. Now, this first episode is called Gone Fishing. Okay. Gone Fishing. And the reason why I called it Gone Fishing because that's how all this started out. Okay. It started out with me. I got out of the military a few years back. Okay. And I returned here to my home state of Alabama. Okay. And there ain't a whole lot of stuff to do here in Alabama. I come from a little small town, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. So when I came back out of being in the military, I took up fishing. Okay. Now, how does fishing relate to this? Well, if you look at a dating site called POF, Plenty of Fish, okay, it's kind of like you're out there, and people say it's plenty of fish in the sea, all this other good stuff. But the reason why it really correlates to me is because it has to do with attracting something. When you go fishing, you have to have the right kinds of baits if you want to catch certain fish. Okay? To me, that goes down to the dating game is the same type of thing. If you want to catch a certain type of fish, you got to have a certain type of bait. Okay? But that's what starts off the story. Okay? Let me tell you about me going fishing and how that correlates into this. Okay? Now, I took up this hobby, and I'd been going out to different lakes and stuff like that because I had a lot of time on my hand. I'm pretty much retired. I'm 100% VA veteran, so I had plenty of money to pay my bills and pretty much just do nothing. So I started fishing, and I wanted to catch certain types of fish. So of course I didn't know anything about doing this myself. I was self-teaching myself. I was teaching myself everything. It was self-taught. So I had to teach myself little weight systems and all this other stuff. But what really got me going was one day I went to a smaller lake that I was fishing in, and I got out there and threw my rod out, and no sooner than I threw that bad boy out there, that doggone rod tried to tear out of my hand, pretty much. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So as all this was going on, I wound up putting in this largemouth bass. Now you can see my arm. This joker, from the tip of my fingers to back here, was how long he was. It was a big fish. Me and a bunch of people ate off of that fish, right? But the thing was, I could not catch another one, not that big. Okay, here you go, guys. Some of y'all had that good catch with women, but you haven't been able to catch the big ones. Or if you do catch a big one, it's like luck. Okay, this is how the story. Just watch how the story plays into it. Okay, so now after catching that big old fish, guys, I'm like, hey, look, we cut that joker up, and he was good. And I mean, like, hey, I had got an appetite for this fish. I had to catch some more. Okay. So what wound up happening was I wound up calling this guy that was a professional fisherman. Okay, um, out on Lake Eufaula here in Alabama. That's if you Google it, you'll find out that's like the bass capital of the world. Okay, so I'd gone out there a couple of times trying to catch some more bass, but I was coming up with other stuff. Could not get this. Okay, and I decided at that point, I'm like, look, man, I had a birthday coming up, and I wanted to have a fish fry for this birthday, and I'm like, I got to get some more of these. Okay, so I wound up calling a professional. That he was actually a he fished in fishing tournaments out there on that lake. So catching bass was no problem for him. Okay, so I called this guy up and I went out with him. And the first thing when I got there, he got my rod in his hand. He's like, "Hey man, this line that you got on here is good, but it's this color and this fish can see it." Whoa, that was already that was first lesson. So he fixed that, cut that, put a leader on there, and then he put another kind of not lock, hook on there. I had the wrong hook. Then he put one of those little rubber baits on there, like a lure. I'd never used this kind of thing before. So that was something new to me. To make a long story short, I, I paid this guy for like 4 hours of fishing, but the fish that I want to catch, we caught him in 30 minutes. And here's the deal. There was science behind this, and that's why I'm going into this thing with the women. See, as I go through Two Divided, see, there's a science behind this whole thing. There's a science behind this whole thing. How did fishing get me to that? When I started understanding that to catch a certain type of fish, you need a certain type of bait, a certain type of line. You need a certain. I realized that this was the same thing as dealing with women. It was the same exact thing. You need a certain stuff to get certain women. That's how I started going. That's why the first chapter is going fishing. See, when I went fishing, that made me have a kind of revelation because I was out there. It was like if you want to catch catfish, see, when most times when you date, you don't want catfish. People already know that word, right? But you want to catch catfish, you can use any kind of bait. You can throw anything on there, and the catfish is going to bite that. But if you want to catch like other freshwater fish, like here we have the red ear sunfish, or people call it the brim. We have crappies. Those are freshwater fish, but they don't feed the same way that catfish do on the bottom, and they don't feed off the same things. And see, what you got to start understanding is when you're dating with women, or even when women are dating with men, the right bait is important depending upon the kind of fish that you're trying to catch. In my situation, I wanted to catch bass. The first one I caught when I got out there and I taught this guy, I understood I had caught this guy. I had caught this first fish that I caught completely, totally by luck. It was a certain time of season. He was in a certain area where he wouldn't normally be at, but he was there because he was hunting and stuff. And when I threw my bait, I had pretty much smacked this fish in the face, and he hit it. So I was able to catch him on a little bitty hook and all the other good stuff. But it was total pure luck. And what I want to say about the first situation, the first chapter in this book is that most guys are getting the women that they want by pure luck, but you don't know how to get them by pure luck. You can use science and skill and facts to get these women. It's not that hard. It's just like going fishing or hunting. As long as you got the right bait, you're probably going to get what you want. That's the real moral of the story of this one, guys. That's why I decided to drop it on YouTube like this, because it's a lot easier to go ahead and give you the points and everything as opposed to having to write down a whole bunch of stuff to explain it. You see, that one lesson from that fisherman didn't just teach me that because I was able to go back and catch more bass. I had to learn certain things. But it's really more about like the kind of bait that you got on that doggone hook. If any of you watch my YouTube videos and you see I talk about like the 3 M's of dating and stuff like that, how she's gonna choose you, that's how I came upon that by this right here. About going fishing. That's how I came up on it. The 3 M's are really the breakdown of hook, line, and sinker. Mussels, that is your bait. That's what's on your hook. Money, that's the line. The sinker, the weight, that's your mind. She might think about that later on. But when you're fishing, once something hits something and picks up that weight, you got it on the hook and you're going to keep it forever. But in dating and in things with women, what you're going to have to do is start understanding the different species of women and different women that you want. And you find a bait for that one, and you're probably going to get it. On the same note, if you don't have the bait for what you want, don't fish for that. Don't hunt for it. But if you want it, you're gonna have to get the bait for it. Bass was the largemouth bass was a predatory fish, and it wanted a certain type of bait, and it had to be presented to a certain type of way. Basically, we were just putting that lure on there and dropping it down there, shaking that thing a little bit, shaking it in their face, and it was hitting it. We was putting them bad boys there like it was nothing. But you got to have what that fish wants. And that's the deal about this part right here. That's why this first chapter is about that. When guys are going fishing for women, even when women are going fishing for guys, you got to have the right bait. If you don't have the right bait for what you want, then you're probably not going to get what you want. And it's really just that simple. That's what this chapter of the book is about. The thing is very simple. It's very simple. If you want this, you must have this. And that's kind of really what it is. A lot of people out here trying to catch something that they don't have bait for. I've done this myself. That's why I know it's true. So the first chapter of the International Average Man's Guide to Dating Modern Women, because this works. That's why I said international. This works no matter where you go. No matter where you go. If it's this type of animal and you got this kind of bait for it, you're gonna get it. It's gonna come to the bait. It's gonna happen. It happened the same way when I was in Germany. It happened the same way when I was in Korea. It happened the same way when I was in any other country. That's why I call it International Average Man's Guide to Dating Women. But it starts off with this first. It doesn't matter who you are, if you're average or not. If you got the wrong bait, you're not going to get the fish you want. If you're fishing with catfish bait, you're going to catch catfish. And if you're fishing with bait for, freshwater fish that feed off of, now if you're fishing for top feeders and you got certain different baits, live baits and stuff like that, you might be catching different species. But if you go to certain areas and you have to target what you want. And I learned that by going fishing. You got to target what you want and you got to get the right bait for it. See, people in dating, in general, this is men and women, in general, they want to be able to put catfish bait on their hook and come up with a largemouth bass. And that's not really the truth, people. It's not really what's going to happen for you. You know what I'm saying? Because the bass doesn't bite the same thing that the catfish does. And it's the same thing when you're doing dating. A certain type of woman's not going to bite the same thing as another type. And a certain type of man's not going to bite the same thing as a certain type of other man. So you got to know the difference between those things and go ahead and work around that. If not, you're not going to get what you want. It's really kind of that simple. This really is going to come. That really kind of concludes the first chapter, the first story. I believe going fishing is what brought me into these things, and that's how it correlates into it. I break it down to the very simple thing of you want a certain fish, you need the right bait. If you don't have that bait, you may as well just not go. I sweated my ass off in this Alabama heat around a lot of doggone lakes trying to catch bass when I didn't even have the stuff, the stuff that was going to get them. And when I did get one, it was by accident. And see, you can burn yourself out doing it that way. If you're going to get a certain type of fish, you need the right kind of bait. That is what going fishing is about. This chapter, going fishing, is really just to go ahead and put that part out to you. It's the only part of the book that's not really going to be talking about the things, but it's actually the most important, the important principle in this story. It doesn't matter where you're at in the world. If you want a certain thing, you got to have the right bait for it. It's just that simple. You want bass? You need lures. You need crankbaits. You need, you know what I'm saying? If you want catfish, just throw some cornbread or something on there. Chew a hot dog, a piece of hot dog, and throw it to the bottom, and the catfish will bite it. But if you don't want that, you're gonna have to figure out how to get the other ones to bite what you got. And if all you can catch is catfish, that means you have catfish bait. You need to figure out how to get you some bass bait, so you can upgrade different levels of what you want. In my tackle box, I got stuff in here. Okay, somebody want to catch a catfish? Oh, you just throw some of this chart, this right here on, throw it to the bottom. You're gonna get a catfish. That's easy. But catching the other ones, that's hard. It's not hard as long as you know where they're at and you know what to have to attract them to you. That's it. Most guys' problem winds up being, and most women's problem winds up being that, hey, I don't got the right bait. And that can be fixed. That can be fixed. So remember, the first dynamic in this is get the right bait for what you want to catch. If you don't, hey, look, if you ain't catching what you want, you got the wrong bait. I learned that from going fishing. This is why we are divided right here. Is the first book. I'm talking about the second book that I'm doing right. The second thing I'm doing right now is the second part of this. This is available on Amazon.com. You can pick up a copy on Amazon.com. But I'm telling you, if you got the wrong bait, you're not going to get the fish you want. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So just keep that in mind. Okay? This has been part 1 of Two Divided, the International Man's Guide to Dating Modern Women. Okay? You have to have the right bait to catch what you want. That being said, I'm gonna end this video and get ready to start going to the other videos that are gonna start telling the different stories about how to do this. But this is a very important principle. You got to have the right bait. So this has been Charles Down and Go Hard, Go Home. Part 1 of Two Divided, the International Average Man's Guide to Dating Modern Women. Y'all check out the rest of it. Hit like, hit subscribe, share this stuff, and let's go ahead and talk about it.